and gentlemen, world of NRail, I'm J.M. Gadori, and we are here right now at the first kickoff show celebrating 50 years of NRail, N-Scale Modular Model Railroading. And I couldn't be more fortunate to be sitting between Rick and Linda Spano. And if you don't know those names already, you're about to hear a treat. I can tell you that one of the first experiences I personally had in model railroading was when my Richmond area NTRAK crew took a trip from Virginia up to New Jersey to be treated to a by invitation only private layout tour of the fine layout that these folks have constructed over a lifetime of N-scale model railroading. And that's only the beginning of their story model railroading. So with that, I'm going to ask them the same questions I've asked all of you, which is, when was the first time you saw an NTRAK module, a scene, or a layout? Go ahead, Linda, you go first.
It was in 1974.
Okay.
Which was a year after we got started.
That's right.
And it was in San Diego at the National Convention.
You were in San Diego.
Yes.
Wow.
1974, and they had an NTRAK layout set up. We had Ben Davis, Jim FitzGerald, Tom Hoover, all the folks.
She just said Ben Davis. She met Jim FitzGerald. This was 1974 in San Diego. 1 year. We're 50 years old. This is 1 year old NTRAK that Linda is telling us about. All right, and what impressed you about what you saw?
It was just the whole camaraderie of these guys. At night, we would have meetings, all the skaters would get together in a room and just discuss things.
Linda just told me that NTRAKers have camaraderie, that after shows we get together and we have fun and we do things, right? Oh, that's terrific. All right, so I go over to Rick now. Assuming you all saw, were you all married at the time?
Yeah.
All right, so you both attended the same show in 1974. What was your first impression of NTRAK when you saw it?
It was amazing. I think it was probably maybe 70 feet long and about 20 feet wide.
It's almost 70 feet long and 20 feet wide. Great.
Yeah, those dimensions have been so long,
right?
But they were running long trains, about 40, 50 car trains. I don't know whether they had 100 car trains yet, but it was just fantastic. The San Diego show had a variety of things to see and had layouts to visit, but NTRAK had people 6 deep all around the layout trying to look at it.
I'm going to recap what Rick just said. At this San Diego show, there were so many things for the public to see and do, it was hard to select any one thing that would really be worth spending a lot of time at. But then he followed that up by saying people were lined up around that NTRAK, that burgeoning NTRAK layout, 6 people deep. That's saying something. That's saying that right from the get-go, America discovered that NTRAK was the new way to do model railroading, modular style.
I met Ben Davis shortly. I didn't even know who he was or what he was about. I don't remember when I met Jim FitzGerald that time, but I met quite a few other modelers, Tom and his friends, and there were some people from Canada that I met that stayed friends with me all the way to this day, those that are still alive. And Steve Stark and George Carroll. Steve Stark was a lawyer, George Carroll was in arts and books. Ben Davis was a fantastic painter, he was an executive, and he was doing quite a few things. And he got a heart attack, and his doctors told him he had to give up a lot of what he had because he was so involved with so many high-pressure things. And shortly after NTRAK was started, and that was before the NTRAK layout at San Diego. Jim FitzGerald was called in to help. And then when Ben Davis got really sick, Jim FitzGerald carried on the whole thing. There was not a normal organization like the NRA or like the National O-Scalers or S-Scalers. It was very, very loosely run, essentially communicated to people by a flyer that Jim FitzGerald printed, and Jim was very, very knowledgeable about computers, and he did all of it.
So in 1974, when computers and terminals and integration with computers was just starting in this country, NRail's newsletter founder, Jim FitzGerald, already was in close connection with Ben Davis, who was among the original founders of the concept. And what you just said is that Ben became ill, and Jim stepped in. And the reason he was well qualified is that he had those computer-based skills.
Ben Davis told me a story once, and he was visiting a friend of mine in Maryland, and he told me he started NTRAK because he was president of Belmont Railroad. They were kicked out of their venue after they had mountains, not as high as the ceiling, but at least 10 feet high.
Right.
I know that was a fantastic layout that I saw in some magazine flyers. And he said he was going to never let that happen to the club again.
Okay.
And other stories said he did it to promote N-Scale.
Yeah.
And I know that was part of it, because the club, that was the club's main issue back in the early 70s.
Right.
Now,
Club
N-Scale,
politics, right? Club politics, hurdles, obstacles.
as far as I know, it wasn't club politics. It was whoever owned the property they were on, and I can't remember where it was, and I didn't know enough about it back then.
Right.
But that's it. But then Jim FitzGerald told me that they did it to promote N-Scale and model railroad, and I believe that's also true. But Ben told me directly, and I only met him one night.
He's about to tell you what Ben told him directly. Go ahead. Tell NRail. What did Ben tell you?
Ben told me that one of the main reasons that NTRAK was formed was that the Belmont Shore Club, which was probably the biggest N-Scale club that ever existed in that time period, that scenery that was at least 10 feet off the ground, mountains everywhere, and it was beautiful. And whoever owned the property shut them down on the lease without hardly more than 2 weeks' notice. So he said, this is never going to happen to the club again.
Wow. And so the strategy to do that was to distribute the concept, right? Make a modular system and let everybody take some ownership in the process.
Originally, it was going to be a tray, essentially 2 foot by 4 foot, and it had three tracks on it.
Yes.
And scenery was going to be put in it. They found that wasn't very practical, so then a fully scenic modular was being built. And the main ones were generally 2 feet before the corners were made and before short sections were made.
Wow. That is so impressive. So now I got to ask you also what I've asked every other N-Tracker. In your entire career, what was your favorite N-Scale moment? Or maybe the most memorable?
It was when we went to what was essentially outside of Chicago.
Okay.
Rosemont.
Rosemont?
Near the airport, you couldn't hear yourself think if you're outside the building.
Oh boy.
I came up my module with Wade, which was made by myself and David Case, Kingsley Smith.
Yes.
And he made one half and I made the other. So the 2 modules had to be together in order to connect with the rest of NTRAK.
Right.
It was probably the first time anybody hand-laid code 55 on an 8-foot length of module.
What year was this? 1976. Hand-laid code 55.
Yeah, I weighed about 140 pounds, and the module weighed 175 at the time. And I pulled into a parking lot where N-Trackers were staying at a motel, and they came rushing out, and they wanted to know if I needed help. At first I said no, but I was tired because we went straight through from New Jersey to Chicago. It wasn't intentional, but we couldn't find a motel. So they took it off the car. Yes. They're going, how heavy is this? I said, it's 175 pounds. And I asked my wife, how did it get up there?
How did it get up?
Well, I told her, close your ears and don't look, and I would growl like an animal for about 5 minutes. Apparently it was adrenaline because I would pick it up over my head and put it on
You picked 175 over your head.
Yeah.
You're 120, buck 20?
No, I was about 140.
140. So that's where you're lifting the modules. All right. So you've also been instrumental in reminding the world that we need to make our modules lighter. They need to be functional and work, but they need to be lighter. Yeah?
Yep.
That's true.
We met an HO group whose module weighed as much as 1,600 pounds.
1,600 pounds.
Yeah. And I'm going, why did it, so if I could break apart, fall apart like the other HO modules and N-scale, NTRAK, I said, if you make it heavier, it's easy to bang and maneuver. If you make it lighter and strong, I said it's less likely to get damaged. I don't know how well their philosophy was, and I think part of those modules are on one of the buildings. That's that museum layout in HVAC.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe what we just uncovered is the beginning of a Zoom-tracked episode where we're going to have to bring you on board and do an interview with Rick and Linda to unpack more of these stories, to be honest. I think that there are some names that you've dropped. There are some modules, experiences, some locations, some shows. Absolutely, the world of NRail needs to hear it. They need to hear it this year while we're celebrating 50 years.
I met two people, actually several, but there were two crucial ones at that convention. We brought our module to it in Ohio. No, in Chicago. And it was meeting Jim FitzGerald, because I didn't remember that I had met him before, and race car driver.
You're going to tell me that Richard Petty was a model railroader? No. Okay.
Tom, he worked for Chrysler, and he was part and parcel of designing the Chrysler and the Daytona.
Okay.
He drove one year, a brand new Daytona before it got on the market, right? With a hood that opened in the back like the old Kaiser Frasers.
Okay.
It was a sports coupe, and he pulled his modules out of his thing.
So he built a vehicle that could actually carry his modules.
Yeah, he was part of designing it. He later worked for General Motors. He was a race car driver, and a physicist and a mechanical engineer.
All right, mechanical engineers,
and
physicists.
An N-tracker. He was one of the earliest.
If you're an N-scale model railroader, what you just heard is you need to take your skills, your knowledge, and what you got at your hands and make something out of it, right? Now, I know with the music in the background that Maggie the Clown has reemerged. She's doing her show. Probably hard for us to be heard, but I want to let the NRail audience know we are going to pick up this conversation for some more.
I asked,
last word right here.
I told Jim FitzGerald, Tom Hoover. Tom Hoover, race car driver. He worked also for EMD and designed engines for them, and for General Motors and designed race cars for them, and racing. Well, Tom, I talked to Tom Hoover and Jim FitzGerald. I said, I'd like to make a steam engine because we were doing long trains, that'll pull well over 100 cars. And so Jim and Tom, laughingly, but I thought they were serious, they said, well, what you need to do is embed diamond dust into the wheels so that it gets traction. And I said, that sounds great, because I was going to try to get tungsten or gold to put inside it to get the weight. Guess what happened? I think the next time that I saw Jim FitzGerald, he had built a cotton brute with uranium inside of it.
Oh my word. So we have seen the cotton brute today. We know Jim FitzGerald built it with depleted uranium to make it heavy, but before that was the concept, Jim FitzGerald was the one who said use diamond encrusted wheels?
Yes, but he was joking, but he thought about it later, and then he put carborundum in there. He used a wheel to roll the carborundum into it, and he had these sets of wheels that he could replace. And one time, somebody had a tractor that turned out wouldn't turn. Well, after a while, the engine stopped dead.
Rick, take a hold of that.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in years.
Rick is right now looking at the cotton brute for the first time in years. That reaction is real right there. That is the locomotive that you all saw coming around and around the layouts. And I'll be honest, the first time I picked it up, it brought tears to my eyes because it was so stinking heavy. I believe you're seeing some experiences coming back right now. Am I right? Yes. Linda, help us out. Explain what's going on right now. Jim. Right, Jim and Susie? Okay. So these FitzGeralds that founded NRail, NTRAK, and the newsletter, and this locomotive touched so many people's hearts throughout the course of their lives. It's just amazing.
Jim has a quality, like oil on rough seas,
Yeah,
on problem beaches.
it's
I never
true.
saw anyone else like it.
Here's the photograph. All right. So with assistance from current President John Wallace, we are now photographing the cotton brood. And there comes the shell. There's the innards. Folks, this has not been seen anywhere at this show. This is literally breaking news right now. I hope you're appreciating what you're seeing. Wow. And I tell you what, those are the most skilled and capable hands I've ever seen to be able to handle the cotton brood the way you just saw. All right, so looking forward to the future. I can't wait to hear more about the Spano's layout. I can't wait to hear about what you built and contributed over the years in N-Scale. And I believe we're going to make that happen this year, aren't we? Sometime.
I'd like you to come over.
Oh my gosh, we've been invited to come over. That's a guarantee. That is a guarantee. Thank you both. Linda, thanks for joining us today. Rick, oh, getting the picture taken. Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. All right. World of NRail, you need to get to this show or the next one where we're celebrating 50 years.